earlier today say that, in your view, you feel that Trump is he's scared or intimidated somehow by Israel, or he's being manipulated by them. Can you speak more about that and why you said that?
It just seems really strange to see Donald Trump move so quickly, almost out of the blue, reversing previous positions into line with Benjamin Netanyahu. And we all know that Miriam Adelson is Trump's top donor, the widow of the late casino baron and Likudnik warlord Sheldon Adelson, who have donated over $600 million to fuel Trump's career. She was seated behind Donald Trump at his inauguration with a better seat than every member of Congress and most of his cabinet secretaries. But there just seems to be something else about Trump that's hard to explain. And what Trump has not done that really stuns me is he's not even made an attempt to explain this war, why it needs to happen to the American public. There's been no salesmanship at all. You can tell his heart isn't in it. You can tell that he actually doesn't want to do it. He said, "No one knows what I'm going to do today." That's because he doesn't know what he's going to do because he can't figure out which way to go. He's under so much pressure from Netanyahu and the forces and Netanyahu's assets. And I think Trump is actually afraid after withstanding two assassination attempts that if he resists Netanyahu, it could unleash something very dark within the US, something that was briefly unleashed on Barack Obama after Barack Obama's Cairo speech, when the Israel lobby and the Zionist movement actually believed Barack Obama was going to give the Palestinians a state and break out of the dynamic that every other US president had been trapped in. Barack Hussein Obama, who had been friends with Palestinian professors like Rashid Khalidi and known Edward Said. And when two nights after Obama's address in Cairo, I was in Jerusalem and I took a camera down to central Jerusalem where young American Jews get extremely wasted who are studying at yeshivas there. And I went and interviewed them. And one after another, they called for Obama to be assassinated or called him the N word openly with total entitlement, because that's how Obama was being discussed within the Zionist movement, within the Zionist world, in the five towns in Long Island where many of these youth were from. My video actually made the local news in New York because these were all New York youth. So the same language would be used about any president who defied Israel. I believe Jeremy Corbyn would have been targeted with some kind of assassination attempt if he had risen to prime minister in the UK. Mike Pompeo, arch Christian Zionist, actually openly threatened Jeremy Corbyn and promised, as CIA director, to push back on him. So there's a real pretext here that I think goes beyond Trump just being bought and bossed. And Trump feels like he's in a corner. He's extremely mentally lazy, does not understand the nuclear issue very well, nor does his top negotiator, Steve Witkoff, who's overwhelmed and who, I mean, I'll talk about my trip to Iran, but I got to speak to Iranian diplomats who are very close to the negotiations, and they were mystified by Trump's behavior. Were actually asking me for some insight because they couldn't understand what made Trump tick. And I think they weren't able to believe that someone so mentally lazy and easily manipulated could be elected, who was seen as such a great deal maker and businessman, and they thought he was playing some kind of 5D chess with them. So now we're at a point where the contradictions of America First are coming out, and Trump is actually backstabbing, or no, he's front stabbing and throwing under the bus some of the his most loyal intelligence chieftain, Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, who changed parties to endorse him because simply simply because she did what every other director of national intelligence did before her, which is to assess in the national intelligence estimate last March that Iran was not producing a nuclear weapon. And Trump has insulted one of the intellectual authors of America First, Tucker Carlson, calling him a kook and telling him to go get his own TV network because Tucker is waging a heroic campaign from within conservative circles to rally opposition to this U.S. war for Israel. It defies everything that America First is about because the U.S. president, who is the vehicle for America First, is letting a foreign leader tell him which country to attack. And there seems to be no U.S. national security interest there. If anything, Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has already admitted that Israel is a hindrance and threat to U.S. national security by declaring after Israel's unprovoked assault last Friday the 13th that the U.S. had nothing to do with this and that Iran should not attack U.S. assets, basically implying that Israel's actions are getting U.S. soldiers and U.S. assets and U.S. diplomats in the region uh, are putting targets on their back. So this is an important dynamic, the intellectual political battle that's taking place within the grassroots of the Republican Party. And the sense that I'm getting just from communicating with some of these figures on the periphery is that feel they just feel this deep sense of shame. They helped get Trump elected, and now a foreign leader comes along and just takes control of the person that they had volunteered so much of their energy and resources for. Even Steve Bannon is condemning this as a war for Israel and joining Tucker Carlson. Steve Bannon co-founded Breitbart, which was one of the most ultra-Zionist publications in America, was constantly attacking me, was manufacturing consent for a war on Iran for years. And Steve Bannon has now done a kind of 180. It's really amazing to see. So I think we're witnessing a sea change. Many of you who are in anti-war circles, you're more on the left, you're more associated with progressive movements, have seen the sea change within the Democratic grassroots base. But now it's happening within the Republican base. And pretty much every Republican under 45 is opposed to this war. Most Americans are opposed to this war. So if Trump goes to war for Netanyahu, the mask is completely off, and we're not going to experience the same kind of honeymoon. We're not going to witness the same kind of honeymoon that George W. Bush got after he invaded Iraq. There's just going to be opposition from all points inside the United States and globally. The only country that wants this war is Israel. The United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the historic antagonists, regional antagonists of Iran, do not want it. It will destroy their economies too and destabilize their societies too, to the extent they even have societies. It's Israel alone, and now Trump is alone almost within his own movement.